Welcome to Unfinished Text Chronicles. Some stories end quietly, others continue. Here's today's story. It's about what happens when communication fades and silence slowly takes its place. Kathy was 27. Greg was 35. They had known each other long enough that their relationship no longer had a clear label, only history. At one point, they were inseparable. Thick as thieves, Kathy would later say. But over time, closeness gave way to distance, and distance slowly turned into confusion. On this morning, Kathy stared at her phone. The cursor blinked on an empty line where she'd once typed a simple, "Good morning." 3 weeks earlier, she had sent a message she'd spent the entire weekend thinking about. Not angry, not dramatic, just careful. She told Greg that expressing herself had become difficult, that she still felt like she had to walk on eggshells. When she brought up things she didn't like, it often felt dismissed, or the conversation shut down entirely. Sometimes, she said, the dynamic felt less like two adults and more like a parent and child, one voice aloud, the other corrected. Then she addressed what had been weighing on her most. She told Greg she knew he had someone else living with him, and that she didn't understand why he kept lying about it. It bothered her that he would say one thing while continuing to play house with someone else. She reminded him of a moment during an out-of-town drive, when his phone kept lighting up with calls from her, and nothing needed to be said out loud to understand what was happening. She wasn't asking for excuses, just honesty. If he had moved on, she said, that was okay. If the other woman gave him what he needed, she wanted him to be with her and be happy. What she didn't want was to hear, "Let's work on us," and then watch nothing ever change. She told him she cherished the love they once shared, but wished him well moving forward. Then she turned inward. She said she wasn't trying to blame him or say it was all his fault. She took responsibility for the cracks in their relationship. Things changed, she admitted, when she bought her first house. Instead of it becoming a place where he could come over freely, she pushed him away. When she sold that house, she didn't tell him right away. When she bought a second house, the pattern continued. She said she should have been more upfront, and she wasn't. She even acknowledged her own bad habits, referencing an old song about loving love but being bad at it. She ended by saying that if they were going to talk, they both needed to listen, and if not, she accepted that too. She closed with a verse that reflected where she was emotionally. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. When Kathy hit send, she felt both relief and dread. The words were raw, but they were hers. Greg replied that same Monday. He wished her a good morning and said he hoped she was doing well as the week began. He admitted he was at a loss for words and said he would remain silent for now. Maybe one day, he said, they could sit down and talk without interruption, when they could both open up fully. No matter what, he told her, he wanted to remain her friend. Then the tone shifted. He told her he loved her, that he was crying while writing, that he blamed her not out of anger, but because he was deeply hurt. Greg tried to call. Kathy missed the call. A message followed, asking her not to call back. They would talk another day. That silence didn't come out of nowhere. Before Kathy bought her first house, they spent nearly all their time together. When she moved, and didn't invite him over, Greg didn't understand why. When she later sold the house without telling him and avoided sharing details, it felt secretive. That moment became the first real crack. When Kathy moved into her second house, she had gained weight and felt embarrassed by it. Greg told her he didn't care, that it didn't change how he felt. But the distance was already there. Instead of confronting it honestly, Greg found comfort somewhere else, and he wasn't honest about it. Kathy knew she wasn't innocent, She later admitted something difficult to herself. How could she expect Greg to be fully honest when she hadn't been? Weeks later, Greg sent another message. This one sounded different, brighter, almost rehearsed. He talked about friends he'd visited, invitations he declined, and how the holidays didn't excite him because he had no one to share them with. He said he still made it a good day by thinking about how being home felt like a gift. The message felt like someone trying very hard to sound okay. Later, another message arrived. Greg apologized for not coming by. He said he thought he was ready to see her, but wasn't. He admitted he was afraid of breaking down if they talked about them. He spoke about being alone during Thanksgiving and Christmas. No invitations, no family. He told her he loved her again, that he missed her, that he still wanted to talk and text, just not see each other yet. The vulnerability was real, but so was the pattern. Kathy read everything back to back, her honesty, his hurt, the cheerful deflection, and finally, the emotional collapse. A relationship that once felt like home was now reduced to postponed conversations and half-finished sentences. Plans that never quite happened, words that arrived only after the moment had passed. This time, Kathy didn't respond. Not out of anger, not to punish him, not to make a point. She simply didn't know how to respond anymore in a way that felt honest. The "I love you," the "I miss you." They weren't meaningless, but without action behind them, they felt like echoes, familiar, emotional, and unable to move anything forward. So she didn't argue. She didn't explain again. She didn't defend herself. She closed the chat and let the silence settle where words had failed. And in that quiet, everything was still there. The houses that created distance instead of closeness, the secrecy that replaced transparency, the other woman who was never fully acknowledged, the holidays spent alone, waiting for promises that didn't turn into presents. None of it was resolved. None of it was shouted. It was simply left unfinished. And maybe that, she realized, was the answer. Was Kathy wrong for emotionally checking out? What do you think? If you'd like to support the channel, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for being here, and have a great day.